Laken Riley.
For Laken Riley, an aspiring nurse, this white jacket ceremony was a rite of passage. The 22-year-old honor student was murdered as she jogged alone, jarring Athens, home of the University of Georgia.
Welcome back to Survival Dispatch News. I'm joined again by my friend Sal De Janeiro. How you doing, Sal?
Doing all right, Denny. How about yourself?
I'm doing great. A lot of things at the top of the news cycle today. One of them, we're talking about that terrible murder of the nursing student in Georgia, a murder allegedly committed by an illegal invader. And yes, I'm using the term invader for a particular reason. We want to use other terms. We can't do that and not be suppressed on certain mediums, and this is one of them. So we're calling these folks invaders. But before we jump into that, Sal, we've had this tradition of talking about our conflicted question of the day from Conflicted the Game. It's been really fun. We pose this question, we think about it, we have our discussion, and we're going to answer it at the end. So what is our conflicted question today?
All right, so here we go. After being attacked by looters, Gordon felt that his young son needed to know how to use a firearm. Gordon's wife, Samantha, felt that the boy was just too young and could do more harm than good with a gun. If you were in the same situation as Gordon and Samantha, how old would a child have to be before you taught them to use firearms? Why?
Okay, well, this is something that's right up your alley and right up my alley. And I don't think we're going to have a problem answering this, but we're going to wait till the end of our discussion. And then viewers, we want you to think about that too, because some of you may have young kids and maybe it's getting to be about that time, or you might be conflicted as to whether or not you want to teach them how to use firearms. I hope you're not conflicted about that. We're not. And we're definitely going to voice our opinions on that, aren't we, Sal? I think
certainly.
At the end of this discussion. But let's talk about this. Top of the news cycle. Very, very sad circumstances. Jose Antonio Ibarra, an invader, an illegal invader into our country, entering our country back in 2022, crossed illegally in Texas, crossed over our border, was given a bus pass to New York, free ride up to New York. There you go. Illegal invader, 2023, arrested for a crime up there and released on bail. Maybe without bail, not sure, still checking into that. Ended up in Georgia, various criminal activity in Georgia as well. One of which he was cited for shoplifting, issued a bench warrant. He was a no-show, and now arrested for allegedly murdering a young lady in Georgia, a nursing student. Just a really sad situation. Laken Riley studied at the University of Georgia before she transferred to Augusta's University College of Nursing, according to statements from the University of Georgia. They don't have a nursing program. She was a nursing student, so she transferred out. She went out running, never came home. They found her, and due to the evidence they found, they arrested Jose Antonio Ibarra, again, an illegal invader. And it seems like we're just coming back to this topic, Sal, this topic of the lack of border security due to the administration, I'm going to call it the Obama-Biden open border. I'm just going to say it. We have to put the blame on this administration for what's happening in this country. And it's mind-boggling that this is still a huge issue. And that being said, I want to pass it over to you and talk about some of the, let's talk about this case and some other things we need to be worried about because of this open border issue. And there are a lot of issues. There are a lot of violent things that can come of a huge holes in our border where we are voluntarily allowing, not you and I, but our administration is allowing these invaders to come into our country, given plane tickets, bus passes, go wherever you want. Come on in, we're going to groom you as a voter, and we're glad to have you. And that's my opinion, Sal, and I can't help but think you probably agree with me.
Yeah, so let me clarify the term invader that's exactly what this is. If you enter a sovereign nation illegally, you are an invader. There's no other way to talk about it. These aren't undocumented immigrants or anything you want to call it like that. And for some reason, of course, it's typically the left likes to label everybody who says these kind of things as being racist and opposed to immigration, which of course is absolutely ridiculous. I'm second born generation in this country. All of my people on both sides of the family were immigrants, right? So to accuse me of being anti-immigration is absurd. However, they all came legally. There's a big difference there, is there not? They did not illegally cross a border that's left wide open, right? So it's absolutely true. If somebody crosses a border into a sovereign nation and does not have permission to do so, they are an invader. So that is absolutely how I refer to these people. With that said, I don't blame them anywhere near as much as I blame the administration that is allowing this to happen and is encouraging this to happen, of course. So this is basically Obama's third term in office. Obama had a lot of these ridiculous things in place. With that said, actually, the Biden administration is way worse. If you compare it even to Obama's time in office, the amount of illegal invasion taking place now under this current administration is far worse than that. Trump administration had, the nozzle clenched way down, right? They were putting steps in place that were keeping this at bay. So here we are, we're looking at a whole host of potential problems that come out of this. So a criticism that a lot of people would make when we talk about these kind of things is, why do we accuse these invaders of having a higher propensity for crime? Now, in fairness, the majority that come into the country are not criminals and don't do criminal stuff. Okay, in fairness,
I would agree.
that's absolutely the case. The problem, though, is that just their initial action of coming in illegally is illegal in itself.
Yes.
And along with all of the people who are just honestly trying to escape whatever they might be fleeing from, is a significant percentage, and it's a much higher percentage than people want to admit to, of criminal element, of terrorists and human traffickers, drug traffickers, etc. And we are leaving our door wide open to all of this. So this particular incident where, this nurse was killed by an invader is one of many, many, many that we're going to see play out, that we have seen played out.
Agreed. I agree 100%. And a lot of the media is lying by omission. Some folks who are reporting this case aren't even mentioning the fact that this person was illegally in the United States. I mean, there are huge incentives to cross the border illegally. Free health care, a bus ticket anywhere you want to go, a plane ticket. Why in the world is this suspect? And by the way, he faces charges of malice murder, felony murder, aggravated battery, aggravated assault, false imprisonment, kidnapping, hindering a 911 call, and concealing the death of another. Why would this person be allowed into this country in the first place? I have no answer for that.
Right, it's mind-blowing, right? We're talking about an individual, and there's so many of them who have come in. These are young men, right? This is not a father with a wife and 3 little kids in tow seeking asylum, right? These are individuals who are coming in. They have nefarious backgrounds, and we're letting them just walk in. Well, this administration is letting them walk in, right? So we're going to see more and more of this. We have plenty of our own homegrown criminal element, that is for sure.
Yeah.
But what we have coming in now poses a whole new issue with these sort of things. We're seeing the emergence now of more gang activity coming from Central American countries. MS-13 that has been in this country for a very long time. In fact, there was just recently an article about how MS-13 is now joining forces with a newly formed gang from a different Central American country in New York City. So in these big blue urban areas, we have illegal invaders now fostering and bolstering the ranks of the gangs that are already here, as well as forming new ones. So
And they're
again,
becoming brazen. I mean, they
yes,
are outright
absolutely.
not afraid. We did a piece on the cops getting beat up recently, and things happening out in public. It's like they don't even care because they know they're going to, if they are arrested, they're probably going to be released without bail or released in some form or fashion, and not going to have to suffer the consequences of their actions. And we remind everybody, we're talking about 7.2 million people who have been allowed to invade our country, crossing over the border illegally, not the way it's supposed to be, and allowed to do so by this administration that's to create votes, essentially. But, you know, there's the percentages are going to catch up to us, and they are. Even though the vast majority may not have nefarious intentions, we're definitely seeing crime directly related to these invaders to our country. And that's something I know you're prepared to discuss with us tonight, Sal. The rise of crime and the heightened terror threat due to this open border, as we call it.
Absolutely. And let's not forget about other issues that come along with this. First of all, the human trafficking is absolutely out of control. Now, it's sad to say, but the United States is the highest consumer of human trafficking, and that blows a lot of people's minds, but that is the case.
That's sad.
Yeah, pedophilia and all of this disgusting stuff that goes on, right? And the open border is absolutely fostering that. We have all kinds of unaccompanied minors that come in, or minors that come in with, people who are not family. So this open border is now fostering a whole new crime epidemic when it comes to human trafficking. The movie, it's amazing how the movie that came out, Sound of Freedom, was very good. I saw it. Obviously, I'm a big fan of Jim Caviezel. If you believe in liberty, you should be as well. He's one of the very few actors in Hollywood who says it like it is. And what was amazing is this is a movie that's based on essentially a true story. I don't really know how much embellishment that went into it, but essentially the premise is a true story. And the reaction from liberal Hollywood was disgusting. They basically, accused the movie of magnifying something beyond the scope of what it actually is. And it's preposterous. Of course, what else do we expect from the Harvey Weinstein type, Hollywood folks? Of course, they want to make sure that all of their, pedophilia and stuff, they want to make sure that stays intact, apparently. So, this is what we're up against. That is one of many issues that having a wide open border fosters, is human trafficking. And the other one that is undeniable is the fentanyl epidemic.
Yes. Yep.
One thing I would ask people who voted for this current administration, because apparently they had a problem with the other guy who, granted, said crass things like called a porn star horse face and stuff. I thought that was quite crass myself. But, I think I'll stick with that over 120,000 overdoses because of fentanyl every year. Because again,
I had to have
coming
this
over our border.
discussion. I had to have this discussion with the family member today, Sal. I did. And I hate talking politics with the family, with certain family members that don't have my particular political beliefs. And I essentially said the same thing. You're talking about someone who had the best interests in our country in mind. Maybe didn't have the savvy, didn't use the words, was crude at times, but at least had a little better control of our border than we do now, which we've essentially thrown it away. And not so long ago, Biden's spokesperson said, we're just trying to allow the border agents to do their job. We're just trying to let them do their job. And yeah, they are, because they gave them a new job. And the new job is let them all in, get them processed as soon as possible, and cut them loose. And if you can't tell, this is really bothering me. This is an issue that is really, really concerning. So yeah, it not only affects crime, violent crime. We're talking about human trafficking, terrible human trafficking, drug fentanyl overdoses at an all-time high right now. And yes, our administration is exactly directly responsible for it. I agree. You believe this. I believe this. I think many of our viewers believe this. If you don't, viewers, let us know in the comments. We respect your comment. We respect your philosophies. Let us know about this stuff. We do read the comments, by the way. But notwithstanding, we do need to be prepared for this because it's not going to stop anytime soon, is it?
No, absolutely not. And even if it did, which would be wonderful, right? If let's say Texas can, and of course Texas is only one state along the border. There's others, right? Let's say all of those states took matters into their own hand and closed that border up tight. We already are already so far down the road with this. We already have so many invaders here. And again, I come back to vast majority of them not causing issues beyond political issues and strain on the system, which is a whole other discussion. But in terms of crime, right? Vast majority of them not committing crime. But we have so many that have come in that even that small minority of them is an enormous number. I don't think people comprehend how many nefarious individuals have come into this country. So on top of the crime that we've dealt with already for decades, we now have a whole new wave of perpetrators and future perpetrators already here. And even if we got that border sealed up, think of the magnitude of deporting millions of people. It'll never happen. And I would love it to happen. I think anybody here illegally should be deported immediately.
Agreed.
That is my stance on the subject. But it'll never happen. And even if we had the political will to do it, realistically, that's a big task. How do you deport 20 million plus people, So we're so far up the creek because of this irresponsibility. And again, this administration is the worst we've ever had as far as allowing just hordes of people coming in. With that said, let's call it like it is. Previous Republican administrations have been complicit in this as well, except for the last one. The last one that has been absolutely vilified for supposedly being a fascist and whatever and sending out mean tweets, etc. He is the only one who actually made an attempt to close that border and prioritize the United States. And I've never been a fan of that particular individual personally. I never was. Before he was in politics, I never liked the guy. He had reality TV shows. I thought he was a big mouth. I thought he was a showman. But you know what? I don't care about any of that. I want a president who's going to close the border and protect this nation.
You essentially those were the words out of my mouth today in my particular discussion with my family member. And I want to say, Sal, just because you don't live in Miami, New York, LA, Chicago, wherever big city, doesn't mean that you're going to be immune from illegal invader crime. This guy, came in through Texas, was bussed up into New York, ended up in Athens, Georgia, murdered this girl. Murder is relatively rare in Athens, Georgia. In the city, they average about 6 murders a year. We don't like to see murders at all, but that's about half of Georgia's statewide murder rate, according to statistics that I've been researching. So just because you're not in one of those big cities, folks that are watching, doesn't mean you're going to be immune from this. It can find its way to you. And we believe at Survival Dispatch that you should be prepared for this, or really any type of a scenario, whether it's directly related to the invaders that are coming into our country illegally, or our quote homegrown crime and things that can happen here. So individual preparedness, obviously very important. And one of the first things that we always talk about, Sal, is just situational awareness as a whole, right?
Yeah, absolutely. I can tell you that growing up in the South, and this is decades ago, tons of invaders back then as well, right? It was not as bad as it is now. But again, it is a problem that goes way back. It's just the current administration has completely lifted any kind of restraint and is actually encouraging it. Okay. But this does go way back. So, you know, it, I want to be clear with people. Again, I come back to we're not trying to suggest that there's something about these people that is inherently nefarious. The problem is there is a significant element that infiltrates and comes in along with them that is.
Yes.
Okay, so I want people to realize that. Another thing I would say is people from Latin America, here's something a lot of people don't realize. Once they're native born, they tend to swing conservative. There's been studies that have done that, like, and then by like second generation born, what happened, a lot of them become business people. They tend to be conservative people generally, a bit more, you know, many of them are Roman Catholic and just inherently kind of conservative. So that's something that's not so often discussed. And the reason I say that, Denny, is again, I want to clear things up as far as if people think that for some reason we just don't like this demographic or something like that. It has nothing to do with that, right?
Yeah.
So the difference is when you have legal immigration, Latin American people actually are, as far as I'm concerned, you know, great legal immigrants because again, if you look at by second, third generation born, they're very hardworking, industrious people who also tend to swing conservative. So I think that's great. The problem is when we have illegal, unmitigated immigration, we have this nefarious element that comes in with it. So it's a problem that's been around for a long time, but it has gotten exponentially worse in the past few years under this administration. So we are going to see crime fallout from this that is, you know, exponential. And this is just the beginning of it, right? So these people don't just leave. Let's say when this administration leaves the White House, all of these people who have come in don't leave, right? So we're just really scratching the surface where this is going to take us, unfortunately.
Yeah. Can the average Joe do, you know, is there some easy research that we can recommend to our viewers to understand what the crime rates and what the statistics say for the areas in which they live?
It's out there. You know, none of the big media outlets will show it. So, just as an overview of that, because I've researched that. So, let's just say again, Latin American Hispanics, their crime rate is not very high. It's slightly higher than what would we even call it? Your typical European descent whites, slightly higher, but not by much. So again, I come back to it's not a problem with this demographic at all. The problem is since the border is wide open, for every 10, for every 100, for every 1,000 people who come through who are actually just good people looking for a better life, even if there's just one among for every 1,000, that's a bad actor. That is a lot of bad actors, right?
Yeah.
So, you know, the overall crime rate again is not much higher than the general population in general. And again, probably any kind of difference we see there is going to be tied back to this nefarious entity that is a small percentage, but an ever-present percentage coming in, right? If you remove that, you would have a demographic of people who, you know, are family people, are hardworking people, don't cause much trouble. So I want to clarify that with people, right? The problem here is not demographic of who's coming in. And remember, we've talked all about Middle Eastern people coming in, Chinese, other Asians, etc. So it's a whole hodgepodge of potential trouble.
Yeah.
That there's bad actors among any of those overall groups who overall are not a problem, right? It's not the good people we're worried about, other than, again, we just simply can't absorb this many people all at once, right? It crushes our economy, it crushes our resources, it strains the system, etc. But beyond that, there's not really any particular problem with most of these people. There are so many coming in, though, that there is this nefarious element among them that is a real issue. So to answer the question, though, of demographically, Hispanics, which account for most, coming over. Generally, the crime rate is slightly higher than overall America, but not by much. And again,
Okay.
it's probably completely skewed by that element that is gang related,
Hmm.
running narcotics, et cetera, that is coming along with it, right? If you could
Yeah.
magically remove that from the rest of the population, they're not in particular, like a crime prone population. It's just
Yeah.
bad actors that are coming in with them.
Yeah. If I have a family and I'm thinking about moving to a larger metropolitan area, is there a way that I can research the gang activity there or find out any statistics about that?
Yeah, absolutely. And it can be harder to do. There's a number of sites that track overall crime rates. A lot of them don't break it down by demographics because again, that's not politically correct to do, right? But people from Latin America, once again, if you remove the actual gang elements from them, they're generally a law-abiding demographic. There's
Mhm.
no doubt about it. The problem is, though, and again, this is not to accuse people of being prone to something. There are gangs that originate out of Central America that are an issue in this country. Just like there's gangs that are problems for us from any other demographic of people. Okay, so that's just the way it works. The problem that you will see though, as far as like if you were looking at crime statistics, um, I can tell you from 20 years ago, I lived in a particular city that had big problems with MS-13. And that is a particular Hispanic gang that, once again, I hate to even I hate to have to mention race when it comes to criminal activity. I really hate it
Yeah.
because that gets weaponized against everybody, including us, right? When some,
Yeah.
anarchist freak goes and does something, they accuse all white guys of being, right-wing extremists, this kind of stuff. So we don't like that, and I don't like saying these kind of things about other people. So, I will make it clear to people that once again, Hispanic gangs are, in the big urban cities.
Yeah.
Okay. And from every demographic, there's a certain percentage that is nefarious. And that is an issue. The problem is, again, with the wide open border, we're not able to vet people, right? We're
Yeah.
not vetting people. We're not making sure, hey, are these people coming in? These are families seeking asylum, et cetera. We just have people rampantly, 10,000 a day or whatever it's up to, more than that now,
Yeah.
just streaming in. So there are many, many bad actors of that. So we're going to see a rise in the gang activity that originates from the Central American countries, unfortunately. So to answer again, circle back to the question, if you're looking at crime data, it's really hard to do that by saying, oh, okay, well, this is a lot of whatever kind of people, ethnicity is here. I'm going to steer clear of that because that's just not the way it works at all.
Right.
Period. With the exception of like inner city urban areas where we know the certain kind of gangs that operate in those certain areas. Outside of that, it's very difficult to do because
Okay.
there is among the whole population, there's certain gangs. So you can't really look at, hey, I want to steer clear of this demographic at all. You have to look at, okay, what is the gang related activity in this particular location, right? For
Right.
example, if you're going to move to downtown Baltimore, which I think you'd have to be crazy to do that, right?
Heck no,
Well,
I ain't doing it.
yeah, no. I mean, and let's just say it like it is. It's African American gangs in an area like that. South Central LA, it's African American gangs are the problem. If you go to other locations, things like MS-13 and that kind of thing will be the more pronounced problem. If you go to other places, it would at least years ago, it would be Italian, Sicilian mobsters, which
Right.
you can tell by my name, that I have a lot of experience, with that, So again, there's a perfect example, right? Decades ago, Italians and Sicilians faced resentment by people because they were associated with bringing a lot of that. And once again, you would go back to, hey, I'm fully Italian and Sicilian, right?
Yeah.
So do I like being told that I'm a gangster? Of course not. It was a very small percentage of those people who immigrated from those places were into that, but nevertheless, that is a nefarious element that came along with it. So could you imagine if we went back in time to that period where we had Italians and Sicilians coming legally through Ellis Island, people who are vetted, and despite that, we ended up with a bunch of gangsters, right?
We sure did.
Yeah, could you imagine if it was just totally unregulated?
Yeah,
Just
no,
any
it'd
ship
be
that shows
crazy.
up, you let them in, and that's what we're dealing with now. So once again, I want to clarify: it's not a criticism about any kind of demographic of people or race or ethnicity of people. It is the fact that a completely wide open border is allowing nefarious elements through that are staggering. Whether again, we'll come back to the narcotics, the human trafficking, and the potential for terrorism.
Yeah, I can't help but believe we're going to see more and more of this activity in sanctuary cities. And as of 2018, according to my research, there were more than 560 cities, states, and counties considering themselves to be sanctuaries for these what we're calling invaders to our country. So, in my mind, I am going at all costs to avoid any of these cities, states, or counties in the United States that declare themselves as a sanctuary. And I think that seems like a reasonable step to take to avoid being exposed to these large groups of people here, not legally, in which there may be some nefarious folks looking to do harm, steal, kill people, do bad things, commit crimes, and so forth. Would you agree? Avoid those sanctuary areas?
Yeah, absolutely, because that is going to be free reign for the criminal element, right? They know that they are literally above the law. When you have a Soros-funded prosecutor in a blue location, okay, illegal invaders are literally above the law, just like our homegrown criminals are above the law. And if people think I'm exaggerating, educate yourself and do the research. Look into how long these people spend in prison when they're brought in. They are turned out immediately, even after violent assaults and everything. But I'll give everybody in the audience a hint. The same prosecutors who allow repeat felons right out the revolving door will come down with the weight of the earth on you if you have to protect yourself against said people. And we've seen that play out over and over again, right? So I would absolutely agree with your assessment that, these places that declare themselves sanctuary cities, it is a naive, stupid thing to do. And the problem that you're going to get is not all the people who are legitimately coming for a better life, fleeing a terrible place, etc. Because if those families come and settle in that area, again, you're going to have the strained resources and economic, political issues, but the crime is going to be related to the nefarious element that is among this population coming in. They're going to go straight to those locations because they know they're going to have free reign.
Yeah, likewise, through Operation Lone Star in Texas, Governor Greg Abbott has, shipped over 12,500 of those folks to Washington, D.C. This is since April of 2022, 18,500 to New York City, 13,500 to Chicago, 3,200 some odd folks not here legally to Philadelphia, same number to Denver, and nearly 1,000 to LA since June 14, 2023, because Texas does not want them. And likewise, I split time between Illinois and Florida being my chosen place to be between the two, but I have folks here in Illinois, so I do spend a significant amount of time here with them. And I'm thankful I live nowhere near Chicago. I'm almost as far away from Chicago in this state as possible, and gladly so. And speaking of which, Operation Lone Star continues to fill those dangerous gaps left open by the Biden administration's refusal to secure the border. And even today, it remains to be top of the news cycle, and the struggle that the state of Texas is having with the United States government and filling those gaps. But let's just talk some nitty gritty, Sal, before we close our program today, and give folks some good advice. And that can apply to this issue or any issue as families, to help to avoid that violence at home, to help protect themselves. And let's just review some of those basic things that we should think about, let's just say in our homes, to protect our families.
Yeah. So again, don't get hung up with the thing of demographics, because that's not going to tell you anything. Okay. I worked in the Deep South for many years. I worked with many illegals. They were absolutely invaders here illegally, and they were working people, etc. It was a different time, though. Even then, first of all, you didn't have as much coming in, and even then, there was not as much of the nefarious element coming in along with them, right? So, hardworking people, etc. The issue is going to be that the places that are encouraging illegals to come settle, saying we're sanctuaries, they're going to attract the worst of the worst criminal element that's coming in along with that. So absolutely be cognizant of that. Be really cognizant of gang activity. Right. And I think I've clarified my point here where, I'm not saying things that are racist about a particular demographic, saying, oh, they're all gangsters. I gave everybody the example of being, Italian, Sicilian myself. And, 100 years ago, literally, people were like, they're all gangsters. Don't let them immigrate into the United States. Okay. So I don't play that game. Right. But I also, confess to the fact that Italian, Sicilian mobs ran the cities for a long time, right? That happened, right? So what we're looking at now is an ever-growing propensity for gangs that will come among these people that are flooding into the country. They're going to set up shop in those big blue cities that don't prosecute criminal activity, and that's where you want to be really careful. As far as certain signature things to look for gangs that originate out of Central America. Some of them are particularly brutal. For example, again, MS-13, which has been here for decades now, particularly brutal. The way they kill rivals and that kind of stuff. So it's something you definitely want to be careful of. As far as beyond just knowing what is in or rather knowing the environments to avoid, know what's in your environment, because you mentioned it before, Denny. You're not immune to it just because you live in a rural area, right?
That's right.
Now the good news is, and sometimes you hate to make it all political, but guess what? It is all political. If you're in a rural red area, guess what kind of invaders come there? Hardworking people who are working on farms, etc. Right? Now, not to say though that the bad element is not there as well, because it is. Right? Look at the opioid crisis with fentanyl in rural areas. It is exploding. Okay, so the bad element comes along with the good element everywhere. So you're not exempt. But in particular, the big blue urban areas are in for real trouble the next few years with the ever increasing propensity towards gang-related activity that is being fueled greatly by illegal invasion.
Yeah, I want to address that fentanyl issue, and to give you one more little piece of information here. In my research, that Operation Lone Star there in Texas, Governor Greg Abbott's operation, Texas law enforcement, since the inception of Operation Lone Star, they have seized nearly 500,000 lethal doses of fentanyl. 500,000 people that could be dead. And that's just what they were able to seize during Operation Lone Star. And I can only imagine that twice as much as probably, maybe even more than that, has made its way into our country that has not been discovered or seized. So this whole drug issue is huge. It's very important. And I have a lot of discussions with friends and acquaintances and people and just viewers who message me or comment about fentanyl and how to avoid being a victim of fentanyl, and that's just a really tough, huge issue. But yes, just because you're in a rural area doesn't mean you're going to be immune from any of that that we've spoken about. But there are things that we can do to help ensure the security of ourselves and our families by securing our homes. And we do need to address this whole issue. This young lady was out running by herself, and when she was brutally murdered. And I have a good friend, Amy Robbins, who has a company. I'll give her a plug, Alexo Athletica, and she's pro 2A and pro self-defense, and she has designed and manufactured running clothes and exercise clothes for ladies that you can conceal weapons in. And obviously we want to, the vast majority of our audience are probably guys who are much like us, Sal, but to address the ladies that are watching, first off, don't go out by yourself at night if at all possible. Dogs are great. Take a big dog with you, light. Yes, you should have training. You should carry your EDC. You should carry weapons, maybe multiple weapons, maybe less lethal and lethal. But by all means, be aware of your environment, and don't go running with plugs in your ears and all that sort of thing. Don't go running at night. And I may be wrong, but I'm thinking this young lady was murdered. Maybe was out running at night. We'll have to research that. Mm-hmm. But, I just wanted to kind of address that. But as far as family security and safety in the home, there are a lot of things you can do, and keep your windows and doors locked. Don't allow outsiders to be able to look into your house. Have a family plan. We've talked about that a lot, family plans at home and out and about. And so, make sure your home is secure. Make sure your home is not a soft or easy target. And you and I talked about not going to certain areas at a certain time of day and things like that. I'll hush and let you kind of carry on this conversation for a moment or two.
So, one thing I want to impress on people is, within the past few years, we are finding the very literal sense of something that in the self-defense community we've said for a long time. That is, you're on your own, right? We impress that on people all the time. You're on your own. And what that has always meant is, the old saying, when seconds count, the police are minutes away.
Yes, you are your own first responder.
Well, guess what, people? The police may never come. That's the point that we're at. Well-known self-defense attorney Andrew Branca, I listen to his podcast all the time. I encourage everybody to listen to that. You can find it, on Apple Podcasts, all the podcast platforms. He talked about a couple of cases, and he played the 911 audio, right? Both cases were women by themselves, unarmed, at home, while a man was breaking down their door, and the 911 dispatcher flat out tells them, "We have nobody to send you right now."
Wow.
So the same people, I'll remind everybody, who want to leave the border open, and it's, the politicians who do this are nefarious. The voters who vote to support it are just idiots, okay? And the same elites who are behind this whole globalist agenda to flood us with an illegal population are the same people who want to defund your police force, who want to disparage the police to the point where they're all retiring early, they can't get recruitment, and they're the same people who want to take your guns away from you. And I want to remind people of that, okay? It's all the same agenda. So I think I've made it clear here. I have absolutely nothing against people from those regions of the world. I think they're fantastic people. The majority of them are fantastic, but there is a nefarious element that is allowed now to waltz right into this country because of the open border, and it's just adding fuel to the fire. We already have plenty of our own criminal scumbags to deal with, and now we just have thousands and thousands more that come in every year to deal with, among otherwise decent people, right? But there's a huge proportion that are coming in that are real problems, and the same elitists who want to literally, they're the ones who have brought us to the point now where there's all kinds of vicinities in this country where if you call the police, nobody's coming. And the same people who have done that are the same people who are allowing just anybody to walk over a border, and they're the same people who want to take your guns. So I encourage people, stay armed all the time, stay politically active, vote against these elites who want to impose this on you and destroy your country. Anybody who votes for this current regime again, you're voting for the sedition of this nation. And that's the truth. I don't know what else we could call it. How can we call it anything else when this regime has allowed, I don't call it an administration, I call it a regime. They allow literally the world to just walk over our border. How do you have a sovereign nation when you allow that?
You don't. It's no longer sovereign at that point. It is, it's a sad fact that it's not. I have to applaud Texas governor.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. No question about it.
Passing
And
laws.
DeSantis for assisting, DeSantis, the same thing. You know, these big blue city elites are such hypocrites, right? They want to leave the border open, yet as soon as a bus full of illegals shows up at their doorstep, they're out of there, right? When they showed up at Martha's Vineyard, right? Within 48 hours, they were all shipped out of there. Now in New York, they're giving them tickets to go anywhere else, just don't be here. Right?
Yeah.
Bunch of elitist hypocrites who want to impose this on the rest of the nation. So I hope we're able to take this nation back. Everybody needs to vote the right way. Okay. Forget about mean tweets. You're not going to have a country if you vote based on you hate mean tweets. You know what I mean? That's just the hand that we're dealt here. So everybody needs to wake up as to what's happening and take this country back. Stay politically active, be armed, get training, and stay armed all the time.
Yep. Stay trained and stay armed. Carry that EDC. I want to ask our viewers if any of you guys out there have ever been subject or a victim of a crime or any type of violence or behavior from an invader. Let us know about that in the comments. We want to know about those experiences so we can share that. And that's something that we need to ask more of. We want to know about your experiences of these different topics that we're talking about, because odds are that we'll have some folks out there listening to us right now that can relate to what we are saying. So yes, we do read the comments. Make sure you leave us a comment and let us know what you think or what you may have experienced. Well, Sal, it is time to answer the conflicted question of the day. Will you read it for us one more time?
Yes, sir. Okay, here we go. After being attacked by looters, so we are post-apocalyptic, I presume. Okay, so after being after being attacked by looters, Gordon felt that his young son needed to know how to use a firearm. Gordon's wife, Samantha, felt that the boy was just too young and could do more harm than good with a gun. If you were in the same situation as Gordon and Samantha, how old would a child have to be before you taught them to use a firearm? Why?
I think it's your turn to answer this one first.
I think so. Okay, so actually for me, this is an easier one than all the others we've done so far. So what's interesting is, again, we're putting the post-apocalyptic spin on it, which, you know, in that scenario, I think I'd have a 3-year-old strapped walking around. You know, maybe that might change things a bit. You know, all hands on deck. But I'll share with everybody the advice I always give, because actually I've been asked that a lot. What age? What age? What age? It depends on the child. Period. Full stop. I have seen 9-year-olds who are perfectly safe walking around with a gun. I mean, I literally walked around with a .22 rifle through the fields, you know, shooting woodchucks when I was 10 years old, you know, because I was trustworthy to do so. Okay. And I've seen 16-year-olds who I would not trust at all. So it depends on the child. So even in a post-apocalyptic scenario, I would suggest that training your children is even more important then, but it's still going to depend on the maturity of the child. With that said, I would differentiate between how old is old enough to teach the child and
Yeah.
how old is old enough for the child to be carrying the gun. For me,
Yeah.
that's two very different things, right? I say the earlier the better. Start educating them in safe
Hmm.
firearms handling, but how old to actually be carrying a gun around, it depends entirely on the majority of the maturity of the individual child.
Yes. So well said. In my opinion, this is a dummy gun. It's just a training piece of plastic. That's all this is. It sort of looks like a Glock 17 that I have in my hand just for educational purposes here. And in my opinion, first off, that child needs to be old enough to be able to properly grip whatever firearm they're going to be trained with in order to operate it and handle that recoil correctly. If the child's hands are too small or doesn't have the strength to do that, obviously that's going to be an issue, and that may make that child not a candidate at that point to handle that firearm. But also there's the mental aspect of, is that child old enough to understand what the firearms are? Are they old enough to understand the cardinal rules of gun safety, which are treat all guns as if they're loaded at all times, never point at anything you're not willing to shoot or destroy, keep the finger off the trigger until ready to fire, and always know your target and what's beyond that target. If that child can't visualize, can't mentally understand what those things mean, even though maybe they're physically grown enough to be able to handle that firearm, maybe that would knock them out as a candidate as well. But if they can meet those qualifications, in my opinion, they are ready to be trained to handle a firearm. It's hard to put an age on it. Like you said, Sal, I've seen some 8, 9-year-olds that are truly phenomenal. And actually, I have direct experience with a young man who Martin Reyna, who is now 11 years old, but I saw him start competing when he was 8 years old in USPSA and Steel Challenge with his father, Diego, whom is a great, good friend of mine, whom incidentally immigrated from Guatemala, did it the right way, did it the legal way to be here in the United States. And I've seen Martin. Martin's really an exceptional young man. He's had a lot of training, but he started when he was 8. I think you could start earlier. I think that quite even possibly a 6 or 7-year-old may have the mental capacity to understand firearms, understand the safety, and there's so many different platforms here to be able to learn, not just handguns, but sometimes it's much easier to teach a young person to handle a long gun because you have 3 points of contact with the shoulder, your strong hand and your supporting hand. So there's not an easy cut and dried answer to that, but if you can combine that mental and physical capacities at whatever age, and say yes to both of those, in my opinion, they're ready. And if you're in a post-apocalyptic scenario
Right.
already, good Lord, I hope you've trained your kids to handle them if they're at
Yeah,
all capable,
absolutely.
or at least understand what they are as tools and what they're capable of. So that's my answer.
Denny, something I'd just throw in there, just in line with this whole conflicted discussion, is I think there is a great utility for a 22 long rifle
Yeah.
with a red dot on it. So
Amen. Yep.
Ruger 1022 or an
Yep.
AR-15 22 variant, right?
Yep. Mm-hmm.
Because you can get a mature child trained up on something that they can actually learn to shoot really well very quickly.
That's
And
right.
I don't think people realize the velocity of 22 long rifle coming out of a full-length rifle barrel is formidable.
Yeah.
It is formidable. You can defend a house with that. And if you're in a situation where things are really bad, maybe the kid is not old enough and mature enough to be walking around with a handgun on their hip,
Mm-hmm.
but you could have staged that 22 for them. And if things get bad enough, okay, Timmy, your job is going to be, watching this corridor or whatever. Here's your 22.
Yep.
It's just a great utility as a tool, and you can get kids comfortable. It's not loud, there's no recoil, etc., and it's formidable. It can get the job done. So keep a
Yeah.
few of those around.
Yeah, agreed. Great suggestion, Sal. Appreciate that. Appreciate the discussion today. Big issue, guys. Leave us the comments. Let us know what you think. Have you ever been affected by anything in a negative way, any violence, any crime by an invader or a group of invaders, as we call them? And let us know what your story is. Ladies, if we have ladies watching, tell us if you've had experiences out there. And we want to talk to you guys. We want to talk to you guys more, the females that are listening to us, young, old, what of all ages, and let us know your experiences and what you have done to better prepare yourself to stay safe while you're out there. Don't go running at night. Just don't do it. Leave us those comments, and we'll read them. We appreciate them, and as we can, we'll respond to them as well. Sal, thanks a bunch. Another great suggestion. Really appreciate you. Appreciate everybody watching today. Make sure you hit those buttons, like, subscribe, comment, and share. Until next time, stay safe out there, and we'll see you soon.